Hi, everybody. It's Dr. K from Holistic Kids. I've got another really cool story to share with you. We're going to say this little person's name is Tony, and we're going to say he's 7 years old. Age, sex, all of this stuff has changed to protect the child. But Tony's story is so interesting, and some of you are going to get grossed out by this story, but it's pretty cool, I think. So Tony came to see me because about 6 months before, he had developed this gnarly red rash throughout his entire body, and they had seen every specialist from immunologist, gastroenterologist, dermatologist. They had seen the top of the top in LA, had him checked up the wazoo. No one can figure out what was going on. They're like, well, we should just put him on immunosuppressants because this rash is immunological. And the mom's like, wait a second, you guys don't know what's going on? Like, how do you not know what's going on, but you're going to put my kid on an immunosuppressant because that's the solution? So we sat down and we were talking, and I was like, okay, so tell me the story. How did this all start? She's like, well, it started after we had done the trip to the Midwest. I'm like, oh, okay, where did you go? We were like, okay, we were in Montana, and, we had a family home over there. I'm like, okay, so what did you guys do in the home? Well, there was a lake nearby, and they were swimming in there or whatever. I'm like, so she probably swallowed a bunch of the water from the lake. She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, so how long after that did the rash start? She's like, oh, within a week or two. I'm like, so before this, she was totally healthy, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. So you went swimming in a lake, or she went swimming, he went swimming in the lake, and all of a sudden, a week or two later, this happened. I'm like, oh, okay. So tell me also about the house, like old house, new house. What's the story? She's like, oh, it was a pretty old house. Any chance of mold? She's like, oh, for sure, mold. I'm like, okay, mold exposure. God knows what got in his intestinal tract afterwards. Let's check it out. So we did some poop tests, and sure enough, guess what we found? Hookworms. This child had hookworms in his intestines that was irritating the hell out of the intestinal tract, causing this rash. And then when we checked for mold, he had some of the highest mold toxin exposure that I had seen in any child that I've been testing for the last year. And it was just like, oh my God, like how is it possible that he's not even sicker than he is? So we gave him some medication because for the hookworms, there aren't that many good holistic options. We gave him a medication, and then within a day or two, all of a sudden, mom saw all of these nasty hookworms just coming out of the poop to the point where she's like, it's disgusting. We cleaned up his diet. We took him off gluten and dairy to let everything heal. And within a matter of a few weeks, the rash that had been going on for 6 months was suddenly 50-60% better. And then we started detoxing the mold toxins, and all of a sudden, mom's like, yeah, she's got more color. He's got more color. He's got more color. He's got more energy. The other family members have looked at him, and he just looks better to them. He's more lively. And all of a sudden, she's describing all of these things about him that have allowed this child to come back to life. And, part of what was so interesting is that it seems like today everyone wants to jump the gun and just look for what they know, rather than saying, oh, you went swimming in a big old lake in the middle of the Midwest. There's probably every imaginable parasite in that lake. Let's see if we can find out what parasite this is. And let's use the right test to identify the parasite. Because, this is part of also the limitation of medicine today. People use tests like you go in, you're sick, you go to the doctor, they do a blood test, and they're like, you're fine. The blood test is normal. And you're like, no, I don't feel fine. Well, they check for a basic liver kidney function, and they're like, well, your kidney function and liver function are fine, so therefore you're fine. You're like, no, I feel like fill in the blank. Doctors still don't really step back and say, okay, is this test adequate to answer the question of what is causing this? In the case of this child, we ended up using this super fancy high-tech DNA-based poop test that is so absurdly sensitive, and it checks for every known parasite under the sun via DNA technology. So the likelihood of it missing something is like, and sure enough, there was hookworms. And this is after multiple tests that were done before, and they were like, oh, it's normal. The poop is fine. There's nothing there. No, there was something there. They just missed it. And part of why I love doing what I do, and part of why I love helping these kids, is when you stand back and you ask the questions, answers come up. And then when you take that answer and do something about it, all of a sudden this transformation takes place. that otherwise people would have overlooked. So anyways, I thought this was a pretty cool case. You guys hit us up with questions. Click on the link below, join our list. So as we have more cases and information coming out, we're going to start putting out newsletters. We can send them to you first. And let's make the world a better place for these kids, and hopefully along the way for the adults that are with those kids. Thanks for listening. It's Dr. K from Holistic Kids.